Have you ever stopped overnight in a strange place just trying to get through the night during harsh weather? Places like that, cheap motels, highway rest stops, remote diners always carry a strange atmosphere. Because sometimes the strangers there don't just want to talk. This is a true story. One that happened during a snowstorm where the line between kindness and danger became thinner than ever. Story 1. The silhouette in the night. The man in the suit. I once had 2 job interviews lined up in North Carolina. At the time, I was living in New York and stuck in a dead-end job with low pay. These interviews were my shot at a better life, well-paying office positions in the warm South. To save money, I decided to drive instead of fly. After leaving work on Thursday evening, I said goodbye to my family and hit the road, a drive of over 8 hours southbound. I started the trip around 7 p.m., chugging 3 cups of coffee to stay alert. But the truth is, if your body is exhausted, no amount of caffeine can save you. I'd barely slept the night before from nerves. Close to midnight, it was pitch black. The highway was nearly empty. I pushed on only about 2 hours from the hotel. And then, I saw him. A man in a suit standing by the roadside. Not waving, not moving. Just standing, staring straight at my car. I had only a second to glance as I passed, but I swear he turned his head and followed me with his eyes. I muttered under my breath, "What the hell?" I tried making up stories to stay sane. Maybe he got kicked out of a car. Maybe his car broke down. But 10 minutes later, just as I'd settled, I saw another man in a suit ahead on the roadside again. Still, staring. I slowed down, debating whether to pull over and help. But as I approached and looked back, there was no one. He was gone. Vanished like he'd never been there. I floored it. Hands shaking, I decided to stop at the next rest area. Under the yellow sodium lights of the parking lot, I saw him again standing under a lamppost, staring at my car. It was him. I saw his face more clearly this time. White male, middle-aged, short brown hair, clean-shaven. Expressionless. But his eyes, those eyes looked straight through the windshield and into my soul. I started the car and drove off without looking back. Exhausted, I finally pulled into an empty lot and reclined the seat to get a bit of sleep. But I couldn't. Not because of the cold, but because all I could think about was, what if I opened my eyes and saw him standing outside the window? Eventually, I dozed off for a few minutes. But then, either a dream or nightmare jerked me awake. I looked around. Nothing. But in the rearview mirror, I saw him. In the back seat. Just for a second. But it was him. That black suit. That dead face. Sitting there. Unmoving. I screamed, threw open the door, fell out onto the pavement, and scrambled backwards in panic. When I finally got the courage to look again, there was no one. I shook uncontrollably, my heart pounding. I told myself it had to be hallucinations from sleep deprivation. But I couldn't stay. I drove the rest of the way, gripping the wheel, eyes darting like prey being hunted. When I reached the hotel, I collapsed into bed. The next morning, I forced myself to the first interview. When the interviewer stepped out, I froze. It was him. Or someone who looked exactly like the figure I saw all night. The man in the suit, clean-shaven, blank expression, eyes boring into me. I panicked, lost focus, and blew the interview. The second one went better. I got the job and eventually moved to North Carolina. I told my therapist the story. She said, "Maybe your mind, exhausted and anxious, manifested an image of the interviewer you feared most." Makes sense. But I still remember those eyes in the rearview mirror. The way he looked at me didn't feel imagined. It felt like he was always there, waiting for the moment I was weakest. Story 2. The flat tire in the woods, the silent follower. I'll never forget that night. I was driving through Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, on a quiet midweek evening. To avoid traffic, I'd taken a back road through the woods. It was close to midnight. Not a soul in sight. I turned on my favorite podcast. A gentle breeze drifted in through the cracked window. Everything felt peaceful. Until the ding from the dashboard, a low fuel warning. I pulled out my phone and searched for the nearest gas station. The only one nearby was a small, unnamed station 10 minutes away. When I got there, the lot was empty, except for an old pickup truck refueling. I stepped out. The man by the pump stared at me, not curious, not friendly. Just stared. I nodded politely and hurried inside. Bought a can of coffee and paid for gas. When I returned, the pickup truck was gone. I filled up, got back on the road. But not even a minute later, I saw the same pickup parked on the shoulder deep in the woods. Lights off. Just a dark shape in the rearview mirror. I shivered but kept going. The podcast resumed. I told myself, maybe he's just resting. Then another alert. This time, tire pressure. I slowed down. Could feel the uneven thumping. Definitely a problem. I pulled over. Checked. Rear left tire completely flat. No nails. No sharp debris. I was sure I hadn't hit anything. Something didn't feel right. I opened my phone to call for roadside help. As I scrolled, I heard an engine. No headlights. Then, silence. Too silent. I popped the trunk, grabbed the emergency flashlight my dad had given me for Christmas. I turned it on, aimed it where the sound had come from, and caught a reflection. Headlights. From the same pickup truck. Parked. Just 200 meters away. I gasped, bolted into the woods, and crouched behind a large tree. Heart pounding. I called 911, whispering, "I think someone's following me. I think he slashed my tire." The operator tried to keep me calm. I described the truck, the man. Then I heard a door slam. He was out. I held my breath, fingers tightening around the phone. Then the line cut out. No signal. I froze, barely daring to blink. Minutes passed. Then I heard another car. A new voice, unfamiliar. I peeked toward the road. The man was talking to the new driver, making up some excuse about helping someone with a flat. I ran out and screamed, "He's been following me. I don't know him. He slashed my tire." The new driver glared at the man. He stammered, denied everything, then scrambled into his truck, turned around, and fled. I nearly collapsed. The other driver got out and checked my tire. I told him the cops were on the way. Moments later, they arrived. The officer took statements, then headed back to the gas station to check the cameras. I never heard from them again. Maybe he knew how to leave no trace. Maybe he'd done this before. And that night I only survived because I noticed the truck when it returned. Story 3. Snow, a motel, and a stranger. Nightmare in the blizzard. I was 28, a school teacher. During winter break, I planned to visit my boyfriend Todd in another state. He lived alone. I still lived with my sister. That day, snow started falling early. Weather forecasts warned of a blizzard by morning. Todd and I decided I should try to drive through the night to beat the storm. I drove a 2009 Hyundai Sonata, small, flimsy, not built for snow. I thought I could handle it, but after a few hours, strong winds and whiteout conditions made driving impossible. I decided to stop for the night. I pulled into a roadside diner to grab coffee and a quick bite. The waitress advised against continuing and suggested a few nearby motels. While she disappeared into the kitchen, a man at the bar turned to face me. Low baseball cap, blank expression, blank. "There's a motel just a few minutes ahead," he said. "Cheap, clean, good for a night's rest." I hadn't asked him anything, but he'd clearly overheard my whole conversation. He introduced himself as Toby. I gave him a fake name, Michelle. For the next 20 minutes, he kept half turning to glance at me. I felt uneasy, paid my bill, and left. The snow was heavier now. When I reached the motel, he'd mentioned the world was nearly white, only a few scattered cars. I walked into the front office, paid about $50, and got a ground floor room key. The room was tiny. Ugly wallpaper, faded sheets. I didn't care. I tried to FaceTime Todd but had no service. Wi-Fi was weak too, so I put on my coat and headed to the office to ask for the Wi-Fi password. On the way, I noticed a new car in the lot parked in the corner. Someone was sitting inside. I couldn't see their face, but that sick feeling came back. The desk clerk said nothing, just pointed at a sign behind him with the Wi-Fi password. I nodded and left. Back in my room, the Wi-Fi barely worked. I managed to text Todd, "I'm okay. Heavy snow." We switched to texting since video kept failing. While chatting, I heard a faint noise from the bathroom. I looked up. The bathroom door was closed. I couldn't remember closing it. A chill ran down my spine. I texted Todd that I thought someone might be in the bathroom. Then I remembered I hadn't locked the door when I left earlier. Todd told me to check if it locked automatically. I crept to the front door, key in hand. But when I opened it, I saw 2 footprints in the snow leading from the new car straight to my door. And no one was inside that car anymore. I panicked, slammed the door, ran straight to the front desk. I shouted, "Someone got into my room." The desk clerk stared emotionless, then picked up the phone not to call the police. He said something in a foreign language, then gestured, "Sit here. Don't go outside." I backed away and sat across from the glass window looking out to the parking lot. And I screamed. My door opened. Toby stepped out casually, walking back to his car. Our eyes met. A cold, flat stare. No fear. No guilt. He got in and drove off. His tires erased the snow like he'd never been there. Minutes later, someone the clerk had called arrived. A tall man didn't speak English. They gave me a different room. I had no choice. I texted Todd. He wanted to come get me, but I said it wasn't worth it. Roads were bad. It was late. The next morning I left when the snow eased up. On the drive, I called the diner to warn them about Toby. No one there knew anyone by that name. I still wonder if I had fallen asleep that night, if I hadn't gone back to the front desk, would I have woken up at all? That night in the blizzard, no one saved her but instinct and fear. The man entered her room and left like he never existed. But he knew her name. He knew where she was going. And he knew she was alone. Never underestimate strangers who act a little too kind in lonely places. Sometimes what you should fear isn't the snow, but the one waiting for you when it begins to fall.